My only son looked me in the eye and said, "I'm not celebrating your birthday. You don't deserve it." I still sent him a gift. It cost him everything. Now he's in jail. And I've got 48 missed calls from the same man who once told me I was dead to him. Stick around till the end. You won't believe what happens. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I was sitting alone at my kitchen table when the last call came in. 48 missed calls. All from the same number. All from my son. Ethan. That morning had started quietly. It was my 63rd birthday. No cake, no celebration, no visitors. Just me, my coffee, and the kind of silence that stings a little deeper when you remember who's not calling. And then, finally, the phone rang. I didn't answer it. I just stared at the screen because the name flashing across it was a name I used to say every night before bed like a prayer. Ethan. My only son. My pride. My purpose. The boy I raised alone after cancer took my wife and left me in pieces. The boy I gave everything to. Time. Money. My entire life. But not long ago, that boy said something I never thought I'd hear. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'm not celebrating your birthday this year. You don't deserve it." No hesitation, no humor, just ice in his voice. He said I was selfish, that I only ever did things for him so I could feel good about myself, that everything I ever gave him came with strings attached. And the worst part, he said it like he believed it. That night, I sat on my porch under the same stars I used to point at with him when he was little, back when he'd sit on my lap and ask if people could live on the moon, back when I was his hero. Now, I was nothing but a burden to him. And still, I sent him a gift, a small wooden box lined with velvet. Inside, it was something I knew he'd recognize, something he once used to break the law in my name. He didn't know it then, but that gift was going to flip his whole world upside down. Because no matter how far a child strays, some lessons come back the hard way. And mine was just getting started. Before all this happened, before the cold words, the police, and the missed calls, I would have told you my life had meaning because of one thing: being a father. My name is David Whitaker. I'm 63, retired, and I live in a quiet neighborhood outside of Kansas City. Nothing flashy. 2-bedroom ranch. Faded paint on the porch. But it's home. And for most of my adult life, that home was built around Ethan, my only son. My wife Karen passed away from breast cancer when Ethan was just 6. She was everything to me. I watched her shrink into nothing in that hospital bed, holding my hand and whispering, "Take care of him. Don't let him forget how much he's loved." I made that promise, and I kept it. I raised Ethan alone from that moment on. I was the one making scraped. My back ached every night, but I didn't care. Every time I saw him smile, it erased the pain. Ethan was a bright kid, loved books, asked 1,000 questions a day. One time when he was 9, he asked me why I never bought myself anything. I told him I already did. I bought you a future. We didn't have much, but I made sure he never felt it. He always had new shoes for school, hot meals every night, and birthday parties. I could barely afford, but somehow made happen. I once worked 3 extra shifts just to buy him a $90 Lego set he'd been staring at in the store window for months. I never missed a birthday, never missed a hug before bedtime. When he had nightmares, he'd crawl into my bed. When he got the flu in 8th grade, I slept on the floor next to him for 2 nights straight, just to keep a cold towel on his head. That boy was my entire world, and for a long time I thought I was his. Even when he went off to college in California, a private school that cost more than our house, I told him not to worry about money. I took out a second mortgage, pulled from my retirement. I told him, "You're not going to graduate with debt, he'll handle it." He said thank you, hugged me tight, called me his rock. I believed we were solid, unbreakable, the kind of bond only grief and survival could create. But slowly, things started to shift. The calls became shorter, then they stopped. He didn't come home for Thanksgiving one year, then Christmas. Always had an excuse. Work friends, not enough time. Still, I sent him gifts, birthday cards, money, and I never forgot his birthday, not once. So when mine came around this year, my 63rd, I didn't expect fireworks. I didn't expect a party. I just hoped he'd call me, say happy birthday, maybe tell me he loved me. That was it. What I got instead was silence, and then something worse than silence. 3 days before my birthday, I finally got him on the phone. That's when he said the words that still echo in my ears. "I'm not celebrating your birthday. You don't deserve it." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The boy I raised was gone. 3 days before my birthday, I finally heard Ethan's voice. I had called him 3 times that week, no answer, left 2 voicemails, no reply. When he finally picked up, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe an apology, maybe even just a lazy, happy early birthday. But what I got was a tone I had never heard from him before. He answered with a sigh. "Yeah," he said, like I was just another spam call. I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, son, just wanted to see how you were doing. My birthday's this weekend. Thought maybe we could talk or catch up." There was a pause, and then came the words, flat, cold, rehearsed. "I'm not celebrating your birthday. You don't deserve sharper. You think just because you worked hard and didn't abandon me that you're some kind of hero?" I stood there in my kitchen holding the phone, trying to understand where this venom was coming from. "I gave you everything I had," I said quietly. "No," he shot back. "You gave me guilt. You made me feel like I was in your debt for being born. Like every time you paid for something, I was supposed to worship you. Ethan, that's not. I'm not a little kid anymore. I see things clearly now. You didn't raise me out of love. You raised me because you wanted someone to fix your empty life after Mom died. That one hit like a hammer. The air left my lungs." Before I could respond, he muttered, "Anyway, I've got plans. Don't call me again this week." And then he hung up. Just like that. I stood in silence for a long time, the kind of silence where the world feels like it's tilting. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat down. And, for the first time in my life, I questioned everything. Every meal I cooked, every fever I sat through, every hour of overtime I worked so that boy could feel safe, warm, loved. Was it all invisible? Was it all wasted? I thought that was the worst of it. But then 2 nights later, the night before my birthday, I saw the video. A neighbor's daughter sent it to me on Facebook. Ethan had posted a clip on social media. It was him on a rooftop, cocktail in hand, friends laughing behind him. The caption read, "Boomers, be like, I gave you life, now give me loyalty, me. Blocked, reported, unbothered." He laughed into the camera and said, "Just because you raised me doesn't mean I owe you anything. If being a parent was so hard, maybe you shouldn't have had kids." Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments praising him for breaking generational trauma. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was humiliated. He didn't just shut me out. He turned me into a punchline. The people clapping for him had no idea who I was, no idea what I had done to keep his life stitched together when mine was falling apart. He erased me from his life and then used my sacrifices for social media points. And still, even after all that, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't post a comment. I didn't beg. I just closed the laptop and walked over to the closet. There was a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside it, the tool he once used to betray me. A pen, one he'd use again. Only this time it'd be the one sending it. After I saw that rooftop video, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. The house felt colder that night. Or maybe I just noticed the quiet more. The kind of quiet that comes when you realize the person you built your life around doesn't see you anymore. Not as a father, not even as a human being. And all I could think about were the years, the long, hard years. I remember it was crooked, it had no wheels, but when he saw it, his eyes lit up like it'd brought him the moon. I remembered holding his hand the day we buried Karen. He didn't cry. Not at first. He just clutched her scarf and asked if God made mistakes. I didn't have the answer, so I told him what I needed to believe, that God takes the best people first because heaven runs out of heroes too. After that, I became everything: cook, nurse, tutor, disciplinarian, chauffeur. I worked 6 days a week at the auto shop, 10-hour shifts. Then I picked up part-time deliveries at night just to make ends meet. When Ethan wanted to join the school band, I sold my old stereo system to buy him a trumpet. When he got accepted to an out-of-state robotics competition in high school, I lied to my boss about a family emergency and drove 14 hours straight just to be there in the front row. I didn't sleep much for over 2 decades. My body started breaking down early: bad knees, pinched nerves, ulcers from stress. But I never complained, because every sacrifice felt worth it when I saw him thrive. Even when money got tight, I always found a way to make sure Ethan had what he needed. I skipped meals so he could eat more. I wore the same jacket for 10 winters straight so he could have a new one each year. When he applied for college, I didn't even blink. I told him to dream big. I'd handle the rest. I cashed out my savings, took out loans, refinanced the house. I told him, don't worry about money, just focus on building something great. And when he graduated, he didn't invite me to the ceremony, said it would be awkward having me around his startup friends. I watched the live stream from my living room, alone, holding the cap and gown he never wore in high school because he said, "What's the point?" Even after that, I kept showing up. When he lost his job during the crypto crash, I sent him rent money. When he tried launching an app that flopped within 2 months, I told him, it's okay, failing is part of growing. And when he forged my signature for that $60,000 loan, I didn't call the police. I paid it off in secret. I told myself, he's young, he's panicking, hell come around. But he didn't. He just drifted further, until he became a man who looked into a camera, made jokes about abandonment, and told the world his father was clinging to an identity that didn't exist. And now, the weight of those years, the scraped hands, the sleepless nights, the promises I kept, all of it sat in my chest like bricks. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to see me. But he didn't. So I finally started seeing things clearly for myself. And in that clarity, I found a decision that had been waiting in silence for years, buried in an envelope in my filing cabinet. My lawyer had drawn it up for just-in-case purposes. Now, it was time to open it, because the man I had sacrificed my life for wasn't my son anymore. The morning of my 63rd birthday, I sat at my kitchen table in complete silence. No balloons, no visitors, no creak of the old ceiling fan and the low hum of the refrigerator. The same one that had kept Ethan's Lunchables cold for school every day when he was little. I thought I'd feel sadness, or regret, or maybe even hope. But what I felt instead was something colder, a kind of emotional stillness that only comes when you've finally stopped lying to yourself. Because the truth was, Ethan didn't drift from me. He walked away, deliberately, and slammed the door behind him. And I let him. I let him because I kept believing that somewhere beneath the cruelty was still that same little boy with scabby knees and jelly on his cheeks, the one who used to call me his hero. But that boy was gone. And now I was looking at the man who replaced him, the one who forged my signature, mocked me in front of strangers, and told me I didn't deserve love. That morning, I made a cup of coffee, sat down, and reached for a folder in the kitchen drawer labeled "Will Trust." I hadn't looked at it in over 5 years. Inside was my entire estate plan, the deed to the house, investment documents, stock dividends, a modest life insurance policy, and a trust fund, about $400,000 total, set to transfer to Ethan automatically when I passed. He didn't even know it existed. I created it silently year by year, dollar by dollar. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Father's Day. I skipped gifts, skipped vacations, skipped anything extra just to keep it growing. Because I wanted him to have stability after I was gone. I wanted to leave him something that could never be taken away. A home, a future, a legacy. But now I saw the truth. He never valued what I built. He never respected the hands that built it, and I could no longer justify rewarding that kind of man. So, I called my lawyer. "Morning, David," he answered. "Happy birthday." I smiled faintly. "Thanks. I need to update my trust documents." "Of course. What would you like to change?" "I want to remove Ethan as beneficiary, and I want everything reassigned. Liquidate the trust, remove him from the will, the house, the investments, the stocks, all of it." There was a long silence on the other end. "Understood," he finally said. "Do you want to name a new beneficiary?" "Yes. There's a scholarship fund I read about, for kids aging out of foster care, the ones with no support, no fallback. Make them the full beneficiary." "You sure?" "Dead sure." He told me it would be finalized within 48 hours. When I hung up, I didn't feel powerful. I felt free, like I had finally taken my heart out of the hands of someone who never deserved to hold it. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. I walked into the hallway closet and pulled down a small mahogany box. Inside it was a Mont Blanc pen. Myself. Told no one I thought I was protecting him. Now I saw it differently. I was enabling him. That pen, the one he used to commit fraud, had been tucked away for years untouched, waiting. Now, it was the gift. I packaged it neatly in the box, wrapped it in soft blue velvet, and added a note. "Since you don't celebrate me anymore, I figured I'd still send you a gift. This one will help you remember who I am. Dad." Then I prepared another envelope. This one didn't go to Ethan. It went to the IRS, and it contained everything: a copy of the forged loan, proof of identity theft, a signed affidavit, bank records, and a statement explaining it was time for the truth to be addressed legally. No threats, no anger, just signatures, quiet ones. Because I wasn't fighting anymore. I was just done. The box with the pen was shipped that same afternoon. Priority mail. Signature required. I watched the tracking updates, like a man watching a storm. He sent himself. It was out for delivery within 48 hours. I pictured it sitting at his doorstep. Polished, heavy, elegant. The kind of box you only open when you think someone still cares. And he would open it. Because even after all the things he said, all the mockery and dismissal, I knew Ethan couldn't resist the possibility of a surprise. He was still addicted to attention, and maybe deep down he still believed I'd never stop trying. He was right about the first part, but dead wrong about the second. Inside that box, beneath the velvet cushion, sat the same Mont Blanc pen he'd once held so proudly at his 21st birthday dinner. I remembered how his hands shook slightly when I gave it to him. He said it made him feel like a real man. 2 years later, he used it to impersonate one. That forged loan nearly ruined my credit, nearly cost me my home. I remember standing in the bank lobby, humiliated, while the loan officer showed me paperwork I had never seen before, but with my name signed at the bottom. Ethan denied it at first, said it was just paperwork, that he had everything under control. When I asked him why he didn't tell me, he said, "Because I knew you'd freak out. I needed it fast. I figured you'd help me anyway, so what's the difference?" That sentence lived in my bones for 2 years, and now it had finally matured into something solid, evidence. The second envelope I sent, the one to the IRS, wasn't just a complaint. It was a full portfolio, organized, dated, indexed. I spent an entire night printing every email, bank transfer, and forged document Ethan had touched. I also sent identical packages to the loan officer at the issuing bank, the state attorney general's office, and the local financial crimes division. No anonymous reports. A junior analyst from the IRS fraud department. He asked if I could confirm that I never co-signed any business loan with my son. I said calmly, "That's correct, and I'm prepared to testify under oath." He thanked me and told me they were opening an investigation. The next morning, the bank called. They were placing the loan account under audit. Then the following day, I got a message from a police investigator asking for a formal interview. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction. What I felt was control. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for Ethan to do the right thing. I wasn't hoping he'd come around. I wasn't swallowing my pride just to keep the peace. I had simply taken the truth and handed it to people who still believed in accountability. I spent the rest of that week in silence. I mowed my lawn, read a novel I hadn't touched in months, sat on the porch with a beer and watched the sunset. And every time my phone buzzed, I didn't flinch. Because I knew exactly what was coming, and for once, so would he. It happened on a Thursday. I was sitting on my porch with my coffee, same as always, watching the mailman roll past and listening to the distant sound of someone mowing their lawn. Then my phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't check it. Not until an hour later, when it had gone off 48 times. Every missed call from the same number. Ethan. I didn't answer, but I listened to every voicemail. The first one was casual. "Hey, Dad. Weird package showed up. Not sure what the pen's about, but okay. Guess you're trying to be symbolic or something. Anyway, whatever." The second came a few hours later. Shaky. "Okay, so the IRS just emailed me. There's an issue with the business loan. Something about an identity claim. Did you report me?" By the 5th message, the fear had started to bloom in his voice. "Dad, this isn't a joke. They're freezing my accounts. I got locked out of my checking. They said there's an investigation. You need to call me right now." He kept calling, over and over. Voicemail after voicemail. One of them was nearly 5 minutes long. He cried through half of it. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought it was just a loan. I was going to pay it off. I didn't think you'd really go to the government about it. Please, Dad, please, this could ruin me." But the one that hit me the hardest came at 11:42 p.m. They came to my condo. The police. "I'm being detained for questioning. Fraud. Forgery. They said you submitted everything, that you handed them the proof yourself. I thought you'd always protect me. I didn't think you'd ever give up on me." And then it cut off. Once mocked to come save him. But the real twist, the legal charges weren't even the worst part. What Ethan still didn't know, what hadn't reached him yet, was that the trust fund I'd been building for him since he was a boy, it no longer had his name on it. The $400,000 he would have inherited, the deed to the house, the stocks, the investments, the insurance payout, gone, all reassigned, all legally protected, all out of his reach forever, while he sat in a jail cell with nothing but a prepaid calling card and an empty future. The very legacy he spit on was being rerouted to kids who'd never had a father but still understood what gratitude looked like. Poetic justice doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it comes in waves, a voicemail, a court date, a birthday missed, and a pen, the same one that wrote him into adulthood. Now, it had written him out of my life. 3 days after he was booked, I got a letter, no name on the envelope, no return address, just my full name, handwritten in a tight, familiar script, slanted, a little shaky. I opened it slowly, knowing exactly who it was from. Inside were 2 pages, folded clean, tidy, painfully composed. The first sentence is, "I guess I finally understand what it means to burn a bridge." That set the tone. The letter wasn't angry, it wasn't offensive, it was hollow, raw, like it came from someone who had just met the real version of himself in a cold cell mirror and hated what he saw. "Dad, I don't know who I am anymore. I've been sitting in this holding room for hours, and the one thought I can't escape is, you warned me. You always warned me that one day the world wouldn't clean up my mess, that one day I'd push too far. I think that day came, and I don't think I'm ready." He described the arrest, said he was out at dinner with a client when they showed up. 2 plainclothes officers with a warrant and a clipboard. Said he tried to stay composed but couldn't stop shaking when they took his phone. Said the silence in the back of that cruiser was the loudest sound he'd ever heard. He wrote about being fingerprinted, strip-searched, handcuffed in front of a colleague he once bragged to about cutting ties with toxic family. "I told people you were dead to me, Dad. I used to joke about it. Made videos, got claps and likes, but it's not funny now, because the truth is, you weren't dead, you were just tired. Tired of saving someone who kept spitting in your face." He said he thought I'd protect him, that I always had. And for the first time, he admitted why he really forged my name. "Because I thought you'd clean it up, because you always did. I thought love meant being untouchable, that I could do anything and you'd still catch me. But I think I confused love with immunity." Then came the part that made me sit back in my chair and stare at the ceiling. I found out about were telling me goodbye. The letter didn't end with a plea. There were no promises to change, just a closing sentence. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you can remember who I used to be, before I forgot who you were." That line hit hard, because I did remember. I remembered the boy who cried into my shirt when he lost his first tooth. The one who danced in the kitchen with me while pancakes burned on the stove. The one who used to fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. But that boy was gone, buried under ego, pride, entitlement, and I couldn't dig him out. He'd have to do that himself. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a box on my shelf, next to old birthday cards, report cards, and kindergarten drawings of us holding hands under a stick-figure sun. Because even though he failed me as a man, he was once a boy who loved me, and that part deserved to be remembered. After reading Ethan's letter, I sat in my recliner for over an hour without moving. No TV, no music, just the soft tick of the wall clock and the sound of my own breath. The pen he used to forge my name sat on the table next to me, right beside the empty envelope that once held his apology. That pen had come full circle. It was once a gift of pride. Then it became a tool for betrayal. And now, it was a symbol, not of revenge, but of finality. You spend your whole life believing love is a leash, that no matter how far someone runs, that leash will pull them back. But love without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's servitude. I had spent over 30 years trying to make sure my son never felt abandoned, never felt small, never felt forgotten. But in doing that, I forgot myself. I let his cruelty go unchecked because I thought I could love him through it. I ignored the red flags, the entitlement, the disrespect, all because I was scared of losing the one person I had left. But now, I realized I lost him a long time ago. Not to prison, not to fraud, but to pride. And no amount of love could have saved him from that. I didn't write him back, not because I hated him, but because there was nothing more to say. I had said everything through action. Removing him from the trust wasn't about revenge, it was about clarity. Reporting the forgery wasn't about punishment, it was about accountability. I wasn't trying to destroy him. I was finally refusing to destroy myself. The last thing I did that day was drive out to the old park where I used to take Ethan when he was little. The one with the duck pond and the creaky metal swings. It was almost empty, just a few joggers and an older couple walking their dog. I sat on the same bench I used to watch him from way back when he'd try to race the squirrels and ask if the moon followed us home. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, maybe decades, I let the guilt go. He blocked me from his life. I returned the favor with a signature and a smile. He thought birthdays were about cake and phone calls, but sometimes birthdays mark more than just another year. Sometimes they mark the end of a long silence, the end of being taken for granted, the end of letting someone walk all over your name just because they carry it. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask him to love me again. I simply told the truth and let it do what I never could. He lost everything he didn't respect, and I gained back everything I gave up trying to keep him whole. I don't hate my son, but I no longer protect the man he chose to become. That's not cruelty. That's peace. What would you have done in my place? Would you have forgiven him, or let him face the consequences? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more new stories drop every week. And next time, you'll see what happens when the quiet ones finally speak.